how's it going, everybody? This is Brandon with cinemaslice.com, and we have a special treat for everyone out there today. We have Knives Monroe sitting down with us with an interview. Knives, how's it going?
It's incredible, man. It's a day off. You know, I love Sundays. It's a lazy Sunday. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's not a problem. Thanks for coming. You'd recognize Knives. He's got a great barrage of films going on. Her Doppelganger came out in 2012. That was your first feature?
That was my first feature film, indeed.
Love or hunger? You just starve yourself.
You disgrace every starving child on the face of this earth by puking your expensive meals down the toilet. You ungrateful swine.
What's your secret? What does a girl gotta do to catch a predator who tips like a fiend around here?
Thank you.
You're prettiest when you're happy.
I could find a reason to be sad if you'd like.
Who's the one that made their sister's death an excuse? Just another reason to throw food down the toilet.
You want to be pitied and envied, smothered but left alone. You're a paradox. I don't love throwing up blood. I don't love my teeth rotting. I don't love what it has done to us.
Silence means you've been forgotten. I never forgot about you. I'll never forget your sister. Please remember that.
I didn't know you had a sister.
Her name was Andrew.
Was?
I suspect you didn't know me at all. In fact, you don't have it within you to admit you've been a terrible mother. Do you have any idea what Mia thought about you? You broke her heart every day, and you have nothing to say about that? Don't you even care? You need to take a step back and ask yourself where you've been the last 18 years.
No ice cream on top? I'm lactose intolerant. I'm making it. Just trying to throw a curveball.
May I say something?
No, you may not.
Fantastic. And he also has his YouTube channel, Knives Monroe, which he does vlogs continuously throughout that you've seen. He talks about different things. We'll get into that. Knives, the first question I have for you is, how did you get into film?
I'm very lucky, you know. I think you're talking to, and I'm not trying to sound cool or anything like that, but you're talking to somebody that was born to be a filmmaker, you know. My first memory was of a film, Raising Arizona by the Coen Brothers. That's when I activated as a human being. As a little kid, I really loved Rick Baker, Stan Winston, Dick Smith. I knew those guys' names like at 8 years old before I knew like any directors. I liked what they did behind the scenes, you know, creating aliens, creating monsters, zombies, blood, gore, whatever. I mean, that was like the first time I realized, well, that's a job. That's pretty fucking exciting. I feel like I'm a natural born filmmaker. But, you know, I tell everybody this story. This is kind of my letter from Hogwarts, I'd like to say. In 2004, my mom used to work at a video store, so it was not unusual for her to rent me a movie out of the blue. In 2004, I think it was like April-ish, she rented me Kill Bill Volume 1, and I realized, holy shit, I'm a filmmaker. There's a moment where Uma Thurman gets shot in the head, and like in the first 90 seconds of the film, it cuts to a title card that says the fourth film by Quentin Tarantino. And in that moment, it was like I got struck by lightning, and I realized, holy shit, I'm a filmmaker. That explains everything. So I was 16 years old when I understood the terms and conditions, and I realized, oh shit, this is going to be a long, long, long road ahead of me. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But it was 2004. That summer, I must have saw over 500 to 1,000 movies on VHS, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have high-speed internet at the time. Things were a little different back then. But I got a video camera and I just started putting in the repetition after that. Went to books, went to libraries, and went to movies.
So when you were a little kid, the first time with the camera, do you remember that? Like the first time shooting around, making your first short?
Once again, very, very fortunate, very lucky. I had some family members that had some video cameras, so I always got an opportunity to play with them. I was always that nerd in my family that, I'll hold the tripod, I'll do this, I'll do that. I was always the technical guy that could put together the VCR or whatever. I think my entry level, I'll tell you this, you mentioned that my first film, Her Doppelganger, was my first feature film. It was actually the first thing I ever did in general. I never did a short film before that. I did a few music videos, but that was always for like other people, but my first original thing was a feature film. And then I kind of went backwards and then became a YouTuber and went backwards and like did all these other things. But before that, I recorded a lot of backyard wrestling videos. And so in 2005, I worked at a Church's Chicken. I saved up $500. I bought a 5 megapixel camera that came with like, I think a 512 megabyte SD card, which was a lot at the time. And 5 megapixels, that's hilarious. Our phones are far more powerful. And I started filming backyard wrestling. So I got acquainted with Windows Movie Maker. Before that, I would edit on 2 VCRs. I would cut on DV and videotape. But it was just fucking around with my friends. One of my big influences is Jackass. I love Jackass and professional wrestling. So that kind of DIY, do-it-yourself quality, I've been doing that for over 10 years, almost 15 years at this point.
It's amazing, especially the fact that your first was a feature. That's very impressive. What was that process like for casting? And you have the script, you have the story down. What's next for you in that process? Like did you have to track down lighting? Did you have to track down locations?
Very good question. So for me, with Her Doppelganger, the script was the first thing that I kind of knew where I was going to go with that. I knew that I wasn't going to spend money into making a movie unless I had a tight script. So, I just knew somewhere where to meet guys like Quentin Tarantino, guys like the Coen Brothers, writer-directors, guys like Paul Thomas Anderson. They were the heroes that I worshipped the most, I would say, because script was king. And that's where I started with that script eventually,
Which is noticeable, which is definitely noticeable, sorry to cut you off, which is definitely noticeable when you watch Her Doppelganger, which I had the pleasure of watching it. I don't want to get into spoilers or too much of the plot for the viewers at home. Go watch it. It's on YouTube. It's under Knives Monroe's YouTube channel. Please watch it. It's great. There is a scene in the beginning, which is a monologue with the main character talking. It's in black and white. That's the one scene I did want to talk about thoroughly because it's definitely a long monologue. It's in black and white, and I wanted to bring that up because when you're talking about a tight script, there was no ad-libbing there. That was tight. That was scripted. It was tight. Just go into that writing process for Her Doppelganger. Like, did any other stories inspire you to write that?
Thanks for asking. So, Her Doppelganger is loosely based on an ex-girlfriend of mine who suffered from bulimia, and somehow I knew that I was going to make a movie kind of in honor of that shared experience that I had with her. At the time, Tumblr was hot, and I loved the Tumblr scene. I built my audience around Tumblr at the time, and there was a ED, which stands for Eating Disorder scene on Tumblr. I interviewed hundreds of young ladies who were battling eating disorders, anorexia, overeating, bulimia. And so I collected a lot of data, and I let them know that I wanted to just be truthful with the movie. This was in 2011. It took me 6-7 months to write the script with my writing partner, Dave Carranza. And we knew that was going to be our first film. So you made mention of that monologue. Conceptually at the time, in my little community, I came from a very, very poor place. Nobody had ever really made a feature film before. So I had a chip on my shoulder. I was very punk rock at the time. I want to say arrogant, but I think that goes without saying. And I really had something to prove. So I think it was hard enough for my community. The film scene was dying, but I cared about it. It was hard enough for anybody to produce a short film. I wanted to produce a feature, and me and my writing partner were aiming for a 3-hour feature. we knew it was going to be indulgent. So that monologue was meant to be like this 6-minute thing. And each little sequence that Reed had written, we kind of kept the runtime in mind. And the theatrical, I'm kind of getting ahead here, but the theatrical run of the movie, because we sold out a movie theater in one of my hometowns.
Since that's awesome.
400 people saw it, and it was a 2-hour and 30-minute cut. And the version that's on YouTube now, the director's cut, is about 155. So I took out about 40 minutes. It was very self-indulgent. That monologue, to me, I just love too much to want to take out. I know they say kill your darlings. I know they say eat your ashes. But that scene to me, just to have this conversation is worth leaving in alone. But yeah, going to the script first, if I do some Facebook Lives or if I'm talking to the filmmaking community, story is first, script is first. I always tell people, fuck your gear. It doesn't matter. Like, if you don't have the right story that's meaningful to you, then it doesn't matter if you have $100,000 worth of equipment or $100 worth of equipment. That story is what's going to sink or swim.
Absolutely. Yep. The three biggest things for me when it comes to film that I pay attention to is it's audio, lighting, and story. And it's in no particular order. Each of them are just as important as the other for me when I'm watching something. I don't care if you have a $100 camera. If you have great audio and good lighting, you can make it work. And especially if you have a great story to go along with it, then I mean you're right up there with $100,000, $200,000 films for those people listening. So
I'm sure you have another question to get to, but just on that note, because for Doppelganger, I recently did an audio commentary on the Frugal Filmmaking group page for that movie, and from the beginning of the film, when I started doing the commentary to the end, it had about 5,000 views. My movie's been online for about 5 years on YouTube, and it has about 4,000 views. So that, there's something to say about like the attention and the medium of why, the context of where we create things. But so when I was watching the movie again, I had not seen it in years, and it got very emotional for me because I remember where I was when I made it, who I was when I made it. It's 5 years ago, I was a different filmmaker. I had a different agenda than what I do now. I was at a different skill level. And one thing that I just kind of want to say to aspiring filmmakers who haven't done something that big yet, we'll get into, and I would like to anyways, I want to get into like the context of filmmaking today because it's changed as far as like, going to the cinema, the theatrical cuts. I mean, now everything's, I'm a big, I'm carrying a flag when it comes to creating content or films natively for platforms, like whether if it's Facebook Live or YouTube or Netflix or whatever people are going for. That's neither here or there. But I did want to say that you have to champion, like you have to make a film about something that you believe in. I mean, I am an overweight Hispanic male who made a movie, his first film, and I put my money where my mouth is, about bulimia, It's not something that, it's not a mainstream genre, it's not a genre film in general. It didn't have any big names or anything like that. I made something, it was for me, and I want to just stress that for everybody out there. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of indie filmmakers come and go. It's a very demanding medium, very expensive medium at that. And you have to have a story inside you that you believe in. You have to have a story inside you that is important and has emotional potency enough to carry you over the bridge of hard times, because it's not fucking easy to do any of this. So just, if we're going to move past your Doppelganger, that's totally fine. And I definitely want to tackle all the questions that you may have. But I do just want to stress that that's a story that I really believed in. And it was, held together by, thumbtacks and tape and glue and gum and just, held together by heart, truth be told. But it was something that I definitely will always stand by because it's a topic that I believed in. I would have died for that movie while I was making it 5 years ago.
And that's amazing. I'm trying to decide if I want to call someone out here. I don't. I'm just going to say the documentary. I was recently watching a documentary called Penny Pinchers, I think it's called The Kings of No Budget Horror, or the Guide to No Budget Horror. One of the directors on there did make a statement that I was not a fan of, and it relates to what you were saying. He was talking about his earlier works, and when he watched it, he said he disowned it. He would watch his earlier films that he did early in his career and not even care about them or love them. And that is just something that I completely disagree with. And everybody out there listening right now, all you first-time filmmakers or people wanting to get into this industry, never disown your previous projects, because they're not going to look like you envision. They're not. There's going to be something that's not going to, what you have in your head is not going to be translated to the screen perfectly. But don't be ashamed of something if you make it. So when you say that you look back at her Doppelganger and you got like emotional and that you were proud of it, which I'm sure there's things that when you watch the film that you're, looking back 5 years ago, you wish you could have done differently with all the knowledge and skills that you have now. But look at it and you're proud of what you've made. And that's something that I think everybody should do with all of their projects. Is there, off the top of your head, is there something that you wish you could go back and reshoot or do something differently with that movie?
One thing, and it goes back to writing. I've since reinvented how I write screenplays and how I direct actors. The thing that gave me like diarrhea and like constipation when I was making that film, because we filmed it over the summer of 2012. It took 19 shooting days. It was so stressful, but my biggest, insecurity perhaps, because I'd never really done it before at that scale, was like I wanted to be an actor's director. I wanted to be able to bring actors to a different level. I wanted to get great performances out of them, naturalistic performances, things like that. So I worked with people that like I found on Craigslist, and that's not a knock on them. That's just the nature of the business, And if there's anything I would change, first of all, everybody should take criticism critically. When I put that movie out there, it no longer belonged to me. It belonged to the masses. It belonged to the audience. Anybody can tear it down, build it up. When I screened that film in front of 400 patrons, it hit me in the energy of that room that 400 people saw 400 different iterations of the movie. And I was proud of that. And I realized, I wasn't so precious about it. But one criticism that was kind of unanimous, one criticism that ran across the board, and it was directed to me, was about the screenplay, and more importantly was about the dialogue of the film. And this is very specific, but for writer-directors out there, one criticism that I got, and listen to the way I'm talking right now, one criticism that I got was every actor, all the characters sounded just like me, and they didn't really have their own nuances, and they kind of were just a little too wordy. It sounded more like a play than it did like a naturalistic film. So I took that criticism to heart, and I reinvented the way, and not just reinvented, but I found my screenwriting voice on how I write screenplays today. So what I would have changed then at the time, although I wouldn't have had the know-how, what I would have done was I would have had the screenplay, we would have done a table read with all the actors, I would have found their voice, and I would have readapted the words, readapted the dialogue, and maybe even some certain contexts and durations of scenes and sequences, and I would have wrote them around the actors' strengths and masked and hid and protected their weaknesses. That would have made everything more fun, more naturalistic for everybody, and I think quite frankly, I think the actors did want to honor the dialogue because they looked at it as a challenge, but it was very self-aware, and I know, like I said, this is very particular, but I learned from that, and it's not something that I want to erase from history. I cherish the evolution of the body of work. Like, that to me is also a part of the art, like watching the arc of humble beginnings to maybe mastery one day, if I could speak so grandiose. So that's the biggest thing I wish I could change, is just find the actor's strength and kind of rewrite the part for them to make them look better, so the whole piece is better, to flow better,
Yeah, absolutely. Which is very admirable to look back on and wish to change, because it's something that's kind of uncontrollable at first, especially for a first-time director. Just when the hell that is, pre-production and casting and scheduling and just getting everybody in the same room together is so complicated sometimes that to look back and to understand that, maybe we should have made like minor tweaks to this character is something that is very impressive and something that, people out there listening should take a look at for their previous works.
So, unfortunately, this is going to be where the interview ends. The last segment there wasn't recorded properly. Sorry about that, everybody out there. It was a great conversation with Knives. I love talking to that guy. Very, very interesting filmmaker. Check out his vlogs on YouTube. They're fantastic. Check out his films, his work, and always check out cinemaslice.com and check out our interviews if you want to listen to some more. So, everybody out there, all you slice heads, slice-arinos, slice lifers, this is Brandon, signing off. Thanks for listening, everybody.